If you're an emergency services responder, and especially if you're with the fire service, here's a little something that you might be interested in knowing about. Actually, it's more than a little something. It's more like 237 pages worth of a big thing. So up to now, if you were interested in Nfpa standards or needed them for your work, you might have purchased something that looked a lot like this. This is roughly 40 pages or so of requirements, testing, and other standards speak pertaining to life safety rope and equipment emergency services. Well, last year, PMI released a message to let you all know that Nfpa is changing things up a bit and that they're going through a period of consolidation. They're consolidating related standards into what they're calling volumes. Well, the volume pertaining to operations and training for technical search and rescue incidents and life safety rope and equipment for emergency services has just been released. Now, it's been given a new number. It's been given the number Nfpa 2500. You can get your very own copy of this document by reaching out to the National Fire Protection Association in Quincy, Massachusetts. Their phone number is 1-800-344-3555, or you can go to nfpa.org and go to their catalog section. So this standard combines what used to be 3 separate documents: Nfpa 1983, which was equipment focused, Nfpa 1858, which provided selection, use, and care information for end users, and Nfpa 1670, which outlines team competency for technical rescue. Now, this consolidated standard, now known as Nfpa 2500, actually contains the substance of all 3 of those documents, and those are all long-standing documents that have been around for a while. Nfpa 1006, which is Professional Qualifications for Technical Rescuers, that's still a separate document, but the 1006 and 1670 committees have worked very, very hard to try to harmonize the professional qualifications requirements with the organizational training requirements. In any case, if you're a professional rescuer, the Nfpa 2500 document is something that you'll want to become familiar with. I'm Mccurley, CEO of Pigeon Mountain Industries. We manufacture life safety rope and equipment for professionals, and I've been personally involved with these Nfpa standards since the early 1990s. I consider it to be part of my job to make sure that folks working in rescue and work at height are familiar with the information and the technical knowledge and standards that could impact their work. If you'd like to review the Nfpa 2500 standard on operations and training and life safety rope and equipment without buying it, you can actually access it free of charge at nfpa.org. Just type in Nfpa 2500 to the search box and then click on free access when the page comes up. You know, we've come a long way with these standards in the last 30 years, but I'll be the first one to tell you, standards just don't change fast enough to keep up with the constantly evolving industry. So realistically, you're going to find some things in this new standard, these documents that are now consolidated, you're going to find some information there that you just might not agree with. If that's the case, Nfpa actually invites you to submit your input through an online submission process at nfpa.org. We love having input and participation in this work, especially from folks like you who actually have to use the standard in various ways. So please don't hesitate to go online and give that input. I'm guessing that one of the most confusing things about the new standard is that instead of referring to the old standards numbers, 1983, 1858, 1670, as an industry, we're now going to be referring to the new standard number, 2500. This will probably have the greatest impact on equipment that you presently use that's marked to Nfpa 1983. If you have Nfpa 1983 equipment, it could get kind of confusing, but in an effort to try to minimize that confusion, one thing Nfpa decided to do is to include the old standard reference numbers alongside the new standard reference numbers, especially when it's marked on equipment. So, for example, where certified equipment previously might have looked something like this, where it says NFPA 1983, which is the standard number, and then the date, and then a letter to designate the type, it will now look a little bit more like this. NFPA 2500 1983 2022 edition, and then it's going to have some sort of a letter at the end, depending on the type of equipment, G, T, or E, to indicate whether it's intended for general use, technical use, or escape use. Now, about that labeling. In order to be compliant with the standard, equipment has to be third-party tested by a qualified laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or Intertech Laboratories. But here's the thing. Those labs couldn't actually start testing to the new standard until after it was published. And that just happened. So it's still going to be a while before they complete their testing and you actually start seeing equipment hit the streets with the new NFPA 2500 designator label on it. So the next logical question then is, well, when do we as users have to start using equipment that meets the new standard? When are we required to throw away equipment that meets the old standard? The simple answer is we don't. There's no NFPA requirement, no law that says you have to use equipment that meets the most current version of any standard. So, in fact, I would bet that some of you might even still have gear on your trucks or in your response vehicles that meet decades-old versions of NFPA 1983, perhaps some that even predate this 2017 version. Just for fun, check out your cache. In fact, I will give a prize to the person who can reply to this post with a photo of the oldest NFPA-marked piece of gear that's still in use in your cache. Deadline for submissions will be January 31st. Post here. But I digress. There's no requirements for when you have to start using equipment marked to the new standard. That said, there are requirements for when we as manufacturers have to stop selling equipment marked to the old standards. So as a manufacturer, the requirement is that we have to stop selling equipment or manufacturing equipment that's meeting the old standard 12 months from the effective date of the new standard. So in this case, even though this new standard wasn't actually printed until just a few weeks ago, the effective date of the standard was actually last September 2021. So yeah, I don't get that either, how it goes into effect before it's printed, but I'm not going to go there. That's not my department. The bottom line is that it went into effect in September 2021. And what that means is that you're still going to be able to buy equipment that's marked to NFPA 1983 2017 edition until September 2022. In fact, we can keep manufacturing it until September 2022. That said, the good news is that there weren't a whole lot of significant technical changes to the standards. So most of the equipment that was properly certified to the 2017 standard, it's also going to meet the 2022 standard. Of course, all the manufacturers are going to mark to the new standard as soon as possible, but we're dependent on those test labs. There were a whole big team of folks who worked on these standards, and I'd love to give them all a shout out. But most notably, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible efforts of Jeremy Metz from West Metro Fire Department in Colorado. He's chairman of the Technical Committee on Special Operations, Protective Clothing and Equipment, and his amazing committee secretary, Karen Leitonen. She's from the Lion Group. The two of them are absolutely stellar, and I'd also like to recognize Ben Waller, who represents the Tennessee Association of Rescue Squads. He's been the chairman of the NFPA 1670 Technical Committee on Technical Search and Rescue, also included in this manual, in this book. Together, these three committee chairmen or committee leaders provided extraordinary leadership and the amazing collaboration that they facilitated through the entire process was just unbelievable. So although we didn't create the standards, PMI is going to do our level best to walk with you, support you, and assist you in navigating this change with as little impact as possible on your organization. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, Louie Mccurley from Pigeon Mountain Industries. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and comments and questions might be. Please post them here, and we'll try to answer as many specific questions that you might have as we can along the way.